Hello and welcome to the Next in Line podcast, where we are helping to prepare you for whatever is next in line. As always, I am your host, Chance Pitts, and I'd like to thank you for tuning into this episode. Guys and gals, welcome into another episode of the podcast. I'm very excited to share this one with you here. It's a podcast and interview that I've been hoping to get done for a long time, and it finally came to fruition. Got the schedules lined out and all that good stuff. So in a minute, I will have you in here listening to the conversation between Chris Barnes, one of my great mentors and friends in this fitness realm. We really push each other to get to that next level in every aspect of life. But we'll get into that conversation in just a second. First, let's take care of the housekeeping, guys. If you receive value from this episode or any other episode of the Next in Line podcast, I would ask that you share the show with like-minded individuals who could receive the same kind of value. That's the number one way we're going to grow and reach a larger audience. And guys, in effect, when we reach a larger audience, we're able to help more people. Now, along with that, guys, you can follow us on social media. That's at Next in Line Development on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. We'd love to have you there. If you have any questions, you can shoot us a DM there as well. A reminder, we are starting 75 Hard as a group. I've got about 6 people signed up to do so on the 16th. We're going to have a little Facebook group or group message that we're going to start on there, so we have direct access to each other, so we can check in, follow any questions, any tips, any problems that somebody might have, we can help out with there. So if you're considering doing that, don't hesitate to reach out. It's a great time to get started. It's a great time to really spring into your personal development journey now. So guys, like I mentioned, Chris Barnes is a great mentor and friend to me. We talk about a lot of cool stuff from self-discipline, diet, healthy habits, making big changes in your life, ultra running, and even some career type scenarios. So guys, without any further ado, here's my guest today, Mr. Chris Barnes. All right, so I'm here with Chris Barnes. He's a mentor to me, a great friend. He's been a huge influence on me throughout my personal development journey, especially on the physical side as well, but also within my career. Chris, welcome to the Next in Line podcast.
Hey, man. How's it going?
Man, it's going good. Had a good session today working out. Did about 3 miles and a good back and pull workout. Followed by probably my favorite part of it. I don't know how you felt about it, but that cold plunge.
Yeah, that was the best. Yeah. Ice cube for sure.
It's a little different getting acclimated to it. Keep the cold plunge about 42 degrees or so. So it's always really enjoyable. But man, I described a little bit about you and kind of who you are to me as a person. Obviously you've been hugely supportive in everything I've done, including this podcast and the movement I'm trying to do and just even the ultra running we've done. But right. Can you tell everybody that doesn't know just a little bit about yourself, what you're into, what your goals are, kind of what your main focus is in this whole personal development space?
Yeah, for sure. So pretty modest beginning for me, right? Started in a small town, like everybody else. Played all the sports in school. Went to college, stopped playing sports, started drinking beer, started eating pizza. That was the sport. Made my way through college, made my way to work, started putting on weight like everybody else, wasn't really worried about working out, somewhat got into fitness, but still kept eating my way around it, no matter what we did. You can't out-train a bad diet. I know everybody hears that. Bring COVID around, you stretch along there, but you bring COVID in and then you're looking at drinking every weekend, you're eating whatever you want because everybody was in this panic state, but it was kind of like a free-for-all that you just got to do whatever you wanted. So about 6 months into that, I found myself on the bad side of it, probably about 285 pounds. Went from there, had a friend of mine and a neighbor. We actually started talking about the 75 Hard program, which you've talked about in this podcast multiple times. We went that route, did it the first time, knocked it out 75 days straight, and I just stayed on it. I held on to it. Played it close. I mean, I did phase 1 right after. I continued the not drinking, and then, I took a little break for a bit just to kind of reset myself. I found that I was maybe taking it too far, maybe becoming unhealthy. But, the things that did stick with me was the working out twice a day, the, maintaining the discipline to be conscious of what I was eating. But, some things came back to me a little more easily than others. I would say like the drinking, that was probably an easier one to come back to me. But I will attribute a lot of the program really to what I wanted out of it. I got the the knowledge from the books that I read, I mean, the Babin books, the, James Clear's Atomic Habits,
Absolutely.
Books of that nature, and what it got me interested in, and how it progressed me through my personal career, and how it helped me, at the time you were working for me whenever I did this, and the way it helped me as a manager, reach to you guys a little better, and be a little more understanding on how we did things, and maybe even change your perspective on how you looked at things for your guys. Because again, if I'm leading you right, then you're leading your people right, and we're moving on down the road.
Absolutely.
But man, I work a 9-to-5 job, probably a 7-to-7 job in an office, but I always make time for me, me and mine. So
yeah, no, you have to, and it's cool that you brought that up. Yeah, I worked for you for a while there, and it was definitely not just on the fitness side and the health side, a huge kind of thrust into that personal development space, and really taking the time to start working on myself. But you're exactly right. Seeing the change with you, seeing the way you approach leadership differently, and just kind of the care you had for the people that were around you was something huge that made me want to start this journey myself. And like I said, you've been a huge mentor and an influence for me there. You talked about making the change and when you made the change and kind of around it, but is there any one moment that really struck you or made you pull the trigger on finally doing it? Because I assume you're probably like me. You probably saw the signs for a while. You probably decided that it's something you needed to do, but there was times you started to do it and then you fall off, or you just didn't have the motivation or the
Right.
drive or the intent. Is there one time or one moment or one thing that struck you?
Man, I wouldn't say there's any one in particular time. I listened to the Frisella podcast with James Lawrence, the Iron Cowboy.
Oh yeah.
And man, the guy talked about his toenails falling out in day 14, and it was just like unbelievable to me, the feats that this guy could do. You're right. It was what this guy was putting himself through. One of the quotes, and I can't recall where it's from, but it's tough to get up every day, and it's tough to go run an inordinate amount of miles or go work out at the gym or something like that. But it's also tough to get up and look at yourself in the mirror sometimes, and I think that, starting that was kind of that thing. It's kind of looking at myself thinking, do I want to be a size 40 pant size? Do I want to be a 2 or 3X shirt for the rest of my life? Is that what I want to do? And maybe that's vanity, but it's also how much better can you be? I at that time I was 32, it's like I'd spent 32 years doing pretty much whatever I wanted. And now that's all come to a head, right? It's like, this is what you look like. This is the product of 32 years of doing what you wanted. So now what do you want to do? How do you want to change that? And I think for a personal side, I wanted to get ahead. And it's like, well, and it all starts with your mind. I mean, everybody will tell you, right? It starts, you've got to be healthy just as well mentally as physically, right? And so the physical was just a plus side of the program, of the 75 Hard program, that led to this. But I mean, really the mental aspect is just what gets you, right? You'll never always be motivated, but you can always be disciplined. And that's the thing, right? It's taking your food with you. It's taking your, you're missing out on some things, but what are you really missing out on? You're investing in what you're doing. You're investing in what you want to do. And there is some selfishness to that. And you can attest to that. I mean, our significant others have put up with a lot, for us to go run these long races, or, they're up early to go to these races or travel with us, or, getting out of bed at 4 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday so I can make a run, so I can go hang out and work out and do this show. Or, there's a lot of understanding that goes with that, but also there's a lot of selfishness that you have to decide to take to obtain what it is that we do, what it is that you want to do. If you want to fly to the moon, well, that's going to take some work. You know what I mean? I mean, so you don't want to hold yourself back, but I guess, to really talk around all the way to that situation, like the question that you asked is, what made me decide to do it was, that podcast with James Lawrence and hearing what that guy was capable of. And, he had a reason for doing that. My reason was different than his. His was to raise money for charity. And, he was going through all these things of going broke. His mortgage company, I think, was going out of business. It was 2008 crash.
Yeah, he talks about answering the door with his wife and kids there to the repossession.
Yeah, the people that are foreclosing on his home, right? Yeah, and it's, and so to me, I guess the halfway through the pandemic, that was my foreclosure, I guess you could say, right? That was my light. It was like, okay, you have now drank your and ate your way through this. Like, now what are you going to do? And again, I attribute it to my friend Kyle Rogers. I mean, honestly, he told me about it. He said, man, I think you should listen to this. I want to do it. I think you'll want to do it too. And I listened to it, and I started it the next Monday. I may have listened to it on a Friday, and the next Monday I was in it, and 2 weeks later he was in it with me. So I think having that person there too, your friend, your blood brother to go with it, that's a big thing, right? And having you go with it, and it's knowing that you have other people out there that you're influencing with your decisions, that make it what it is, right? It's, so many people, and I mean, you could probably talk to it more than I could. Think of how many people you've influenced to go do it, myself included, to go do these ultra runs, right? The first time you ran, a 50K, I was like, what in the world is a 50K? You see 10K on the back of people's cars and you think that's enough, but 50K, I didn't know that existed, honestly, until you did one. And now I've done 2, right? And I've done 2 in a team race, for 100 miles and things like that. We've been right there. It's just, it's amazing what you can accomplish. And I think that, something that you can ask yourself that I started asking myself was, 1, why give yourself a reason not to be the best version of yourself every day? And 2 is, you have no idea what you're capable of until you truly push yourself past that threshold that, and people talk about the pain cave and going to dark places and things like that. Call it whatever you want. You can call it happy day if you want, but you got to find where you want to go, and you have to push beyond that. And I think it's so impressive what you're capable of, working out 2 or 3 times in a day for an hour each. It's pushing yourself when, 2 years ago you may have been on the couch eating Cheetos. It's things like that you don't really take into account until you're here doing it. Probably never in your life before this, you probably never thought you would be waking up to run 15 miles just because, right?
Yeah, no idea that would have happened.
Yeah, it's actually a funny story. I told my dad one day, I said, man, if you'd have told me a few years ago that I would wake up and run 15 miles a day, I never would have believed you. And he came back with, yeah, that's why I never told you that. So, yeah. It's things like that, but it's having that support. It amazes people what you can do that, when you tell them you ran 30 miles. You say I ran 30 miles, people are like, well, of course you get the usual suspects, like what was chasing you, things like that. Well,
yeah, if you see me running, you better run too.
Right. Yeah. I guess a lot of us can say that obesity was chasing us. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I was getting away from it. So
exactly.
Yeah.
Man, no, that's really cool. And it's funny you say that as we do this podcast and sit here. My dad's out running 33 miles right now.
Yeah, so exactly.
It's cool to see. It's cool to see the sphere of influence that you have, all the people that you can impact, and really just understanding what you can do when you put your mind to it and set the excuses aside. That's one of the biggest ones for me. And on that topic, you talked about having a 9-to-5 job. You've got other commitments as well. And one of the biggest excuses I run across with people is I don't have enough time.
Yeah.
And you talked about 75 hard. I think the biggest lesson that came to me out of 75 hard was understanding time management and the discipline that surrounds it.
Right.
So how do you balance? You've got all these workouts you do. You've become an ultra runner. You've run 250Ks now.
Right.
Work out like crazy. You're in incredible shape.
Yes, sir.
So how do you balance that 9-to-5 job, all these other obligations you've got, the workouts, making sure you stay on your diet plan? Because there are so many people out there that see it as a huge hindrance, a speed bump in the road that's going to stop them from getting where they want to go. And so just could you speak on that a little bit?
Sure. I think that I was one of those too. I mean, there was the days that it would be raining and you wouldn't go into the gym because it was raining. It's just like, it's raining today, I don't want to go. Man, you make the time, right? I mean, on days that I needed to be somewhere by 7, I'd get up at 3. On days that I need to be somewhere normal time, I'd get up at 4. We start at 5 or whatever. You make the time for what's important, and that's the same for true in personal life, with family and things like that, right? You find time for things that are important to you. And again, it goes with the selfishness, I mean, you're out there running 10 miles on the night of Christmas, you're out there getting that last workout in, before Thanksgiving dinner starts, it's, really I find time, I get started before work and I get it in after work, and I get antsy, I mean, I miss it. If I start to miss a workout or I get close to, not in my normal groove of what time I'm going to work out, I get anxious about it because I like being in my schedule. I like being in the fold. I mean, it's been going on 3 years now. I mean, you're right there, it's addictive. And, you and I were talking to some link today while we were running because we were running very fast, you just you can chat.
That's right.
So I was a book I'm reading right now. It's called Meathead by Alison Berger, I believe. And it talks about the serotonin release of exercise versus serotonin release of doing a hard drug or an alcohol or something like that. And what's interesting, they found a study in hamsters that if there's a free spinning wheel and alcohol in the same cage, the hamster will choose the wheel over the alcohol. And the reason being is that it can get the same serotonin level from the run as it can from the alcohol.
That's interesting.
Yeah, but if you lock the wheel, it'll drink the alcohol, right? They also said that, and I mean, a lot of people out there listening probably attest to it, that work out regularly. They also put in there that whenever the hamsters couldn't work out, like if they locked the wheel and there was no alcohol, that they would be meaner throughout the day. Like they'd go to clean the cage and the hamster would be meaner. So it's a pretty interesting read. I'm still in it, but it is interesting to hear that, that's how they make that comparison. And I myself can say, it's like, why can I not stop working out? Why do I keep pushing? Why do I feel bad if I don't make it to a workout? So, and yourself included, right? It's like,
absolutely,
you feel off, something doesn't feel right. So to think that there's not alternatives, and there are, but the reason I'm getting to that is I wake up in the morning and I have to go get miles, and there's mornings that I'll wake up and my wife wakes up when my alarm goes off at 4:00 and says, just stay here a little longer. I was like, I can't. And then I'll say, why am I the way that I am? And I'll get up and take off, and it's things like that, but she pushes me. She knows. She's like, hey, get up. You got to go run. It's like, it's a mood change for me. It's good for me and it's good. And I think that a lot of people will find that if you haven't started working out early and if you have time to work out early, if you can make the time, is that your attitude and your mood changes so much more throughout the day. I find that I'm a more consistent person throughout the day by starting early than I do if I miss it. Like if I'm off or I can't go run or something like that, if my routine changes in the morning, then the rest of my day is kind of off.
Absolutely. I'm the same exact way.
Yeah. So, it's a thing that has become natural to me but really finding the time it's easy because I want it. It's easy. And, just to tell everybody out there, I don't have any children. I have 2 dogs, but nonetheless, I mean, I don't have as much commitment as other people, but you can't tell me your kids aren't sleeping at 4:00 in the morning,
Yeah, exactly. There's time in the day for what you want to have time for in the day.
Absolutely.
And that's with anything. It could be your hobby if you play video games, even something like
sure.
that, or whether it's working out or even paying attention to your finances, trying to do some investing, whatever it is, there's time in the day. And from the outside looking in, if you're somebody looking to get into fitness or health or get control of that side of things, what Chris is talking about here might sound a little extreme, right? You might sound like one of the outliers, but like you talked about earlier, I mean, how much did you weigh whenever all this started?
I was 285 in June of 2020.
And how much are you at now?
Probably about 223.
You were this average, everyday person, just like everyone else out there that has the same mindset. You discussed it. You talked about it at length. And this isn't anything that's outside of the norm. Everybody has that self-consciousness. They have that urge. They don't wear super tight clothing if they're big because they're afraid of what other people will think. Those are natural little draws to tell you that, hey, maybe there's something here. Maybe we need to start looking at this. And that's where some of this started for guys like you and me. And you get to the point of where you really want to take it to the next level once you're in there, but you have to build that structure. You have to build the mentality, and that's what has gotten Chris Barnes to where he's at.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's huge, man. You alluded to being an ultra runner. Man, do you want to talk about the couple of races you've done recently? I know there's one you'd love to talk about.
Yeah, I think you mean the Dana Peak that I was a top 10 last year.
You were top 10 at that race? Oh, I didn't know. Yep, this is the first time you've told me.
Tough for you to hear, I know.
That's right.
What, didn't you run that race?
Yeah, for those of y'all that don't know, I ran Dana Peak about 2 weeks after I ran my first 50K, which is not very smart for those of y'all out there that know anything about running. And I wound up kind of tore up, couldn't run anymore after 18 miles, gritted it out. I think I ended up doing like an 8-hour time, which is 2 hours slower than what Chris did.
Of course.
Now, mind you, I couldn't walk for about half the race, but you know what? All is fair in love and war. Barnes beat me. Top 10 finish for him as well.
I'm glad we got that recorded. That's good.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Regardless if I was in second place for over half the race of when I ran, but neither here nor there.
Not
a
at the
big
end,
deal.
though.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
But on a serious note, those races that you've done, because you did the Coyote Trail Run.
Yep, in Cleburne, correct.
In Cleburne, Texas, which was extremely challenging for anybody.
Absolutely, man. It was unbelievable. It was, so I started with that one. Me and a buddy of mine, Ty McFarland, we decided to do that. He did the half. He did the 25K. Went out there. It was actually, I think it ended up being almost 6,000 foot elevation change, which wasn't really considering that. I took that in, but I thought, okay, 6,000 elevation. It's not like it's one climb of 6,000 feet, right? It was over 4 loops, I believe, total. Yep. But once you got out there, it was a pretty rough terrain. I mean, so it was in Cleburne, which is Johnson County. So it's somewhat kind of like hill country type terrain. It's real rocky, lot of shell rock, a lot of broken off shell rock. Man, got out there, made one lap, thought, all right, we're doing okay. I was probably a little over an hour on the first lap. Got out there, made the second lap. This is my first run. I hadn't run any further than 13 miles at this point. I'd done a half marathon up to that point, and some other small races. But made the second lap, came in hot, and I came in pretty upset. Man, I came in, I sat down. I couldn't fathom what was going on. I actually texted you, if you remember.
You did.
Yep. I said, man, I don't think I can do this. I can't go on. He asked if I was hurt. I said, emotionally. I sat there for a little longer. I drank some water. I think the total break I had there was probably about 7 minutes. I think I sat there. Just kind of honestly had a freak out. And I think a lot of people have gone through it, yourself included.
Absolutely.
You have that point in the race, where one of these first couple ones where you don't know what to do. You don't know where you're going. You don't know why you're doing this. There's a lot of questions you have to answer to yourself. I remember sitting there with my wife and saying, I'm pretty sure my feet are bleeding. I don't know why I came out here. I said I wasn't ready for this by any means. Like I literally got in my head so bad that I was prepared to say no. I was going to hit stop on the watch, tell the people, the race director, that I DNF. I'm out of here. I'm not doing this. This is nuts. Got the text from Chance back that said that's something that Fat Chris would say. And then I put the phone back in my bag. I stood up. I walked in a couple circles and I took off. Ended up coming in middle of the pack. I think I was like 17 out of, I think there were 70 or so people in that race. So not a bad finish. It was
not at all.
But it was a really rough race. I mean, it was over 8 hours, and I think the finish, the fastest was maybe 5 hours. So again, it was still, to come in 17th out of that many in that terrain, like it was a testament to how bad it was, but I was still grossly underprepared. I was not ready for that race by any means. Not coming off of it. In my mind, it was, I've ran 13, I can run 30, which is entirely true on flat ground, but
yes.
I wasn't ready to go rock climbing that day. Transition a little further, I said, man, never again. I can remember riding in the van back to the car and telling Mel, as the people were talking about, actually there was a guy in there talking about going to do the Leadville that year, last year. He's like, I'm qualified for Leadville. I'm going to it. And I told Mel, I can't believe that there's people that are going to do more of these things. This is unbelievable. That was March or April of 21. And then 22, I'm sorry. And then you fast forward a little bit, Chance is talking about doing a 100-mile race, and we get to looking into it, and I said, you know what, I'm not going to do it on my own, but I'll sign up with a team. And we had a group of 5 guys that Nothing's From Nowhere, which I think you gave us a shout out on your post-race podcast.
Yes, sir.
And we went out there, five guys that just like to run on the weekends, and we took 3rd place out of 11. It was an all-around team effort that was pretty outstanding, I'll say. I mean, we went out there to prove a point, like we can do this. And it's those guys that I ran with, 2 of them are my neighbors and friends, and the other 2 I grew up with, and it was just a group of guys that you wouldn't expect to be running. We probably had 1,000 pounds as a group on all the other runners,
Absolutely, yeah.
So we did that, and I was prepared to take on the bulk of that. I was ready to run. We did that, but I will say that it kind of left me unfulfilled. We got done, we finished, drove home. It took us somewhere in the neighborhood, I think 14, almost 15 hours to run that race. Drove home. We were up for 24 hours, total. Spent a few days recovering, started running again in probably about 4 days or so, slowly. Then I found the 50K for the Dana Peak run, and it was like I had worked out, I worked out every day last year, at least twice a day, like never missed, never faltered. And a lot of miles. I clocked over, you and I talked about, I clocked over 1,500 miles last year, and none of those I would say on one hand, you could probably count how many miles were probably slow. There was a lot of pace pushed.
Oh yeah, you were putting in the work.
So I went in there to the Dana Peak, and I told everybody I'm going to win this. Like, I am running this race to win this race, and that was going into it blind. I talked to you some about elevation and what I could expect, but until you're out there in it, you don't know what to expect.
Yeah, you found a race that was equally as hard,
right,
if not harder than the first race you did,
yeah,
which was a very challenging.
Yeah, and it was kind of a thing I wanted to prove it to myself. It was a let's go back and try again without having to do the coyote run again.
Yes.
we went out there, took off. First 12 miles pretty flat, but man, we were cruising. There was probably about 10 of us in a row. We were all trotting along pretty good, 7-minute pace, and then we got into the technical stuff. After about mile 11 or so, I thought, wow, this isn't so bad. And somebody behind me said, yeah, I don't even consider this part of the race. And I was like, oh well. So I bought my time on early. I changed my race strategy on as far as hydrating on this one. I didn't carry a pack. I carried 2 10-ounce water bottles. So I had to be strategic, right, with my drinking, and that's anybody who's going to get in ultra running. You have to figure out what works for you, how much water you can take, how much food you can eat. What works with your stomach, what works with digestion. I will say that first race I maybe ate one stinger goo one time that I was practicing running, and after that I was like, I'll figure it out. I'll eat when I'm hungry. Well, that's not the way to do it by any means.
No.
Yeah.
You get behind, you're in a bind
Absolutely.
really, really quickly.
Yeah, you get behind and you're behind. There's no catching up because you're still burning.
Yep.
Man, ran the Dana Peak. I felt good pretty much the whole race. I started cramping some. There was a couple of issues where the aid stations weren't where they said they were going to be, and I got a little low on water. I kind of laugh at this now, but I'll tell you, they sent out about 4 emails saying that the furthest aid station would be about 6 or 7 miles apart. I was standing around before the race, by myself. I was just hanging out, getting ready, getting in the zone for it. And some guys had said, hey, yeah, you hear about the aid station that's 6 miles away? I said, yeah. And then everybody kind of chuckled. I said, man, if you're out here and you can't run 6 miles without needing a drink, then you probably shouldn't be out here. Well, I can tell you, that aid station was exactly 6.19 miles away, and I can tell you that because I was looking for water by the time I got there. So, I was ready, but I wasn't ready for everything, and once you've already run, I think that was mile 19 by the time you got out there. So, I was pretty gassed, and I was trying to move pretty well. Man, finished that up, and honestly, I think you and I talked most of my drive home. I had a 3-hour ride home from there. I drove myself back, but I felt fulfilled from that race. It was very much a tear you down, and a lot of these ultra races will tear you down. But you put in so much work, and you get there, and you work so hard to achieve. And it's like anything that you do, right? If you're truly passionate about it, and you want to do these things, and you want to do well, you put in all this work and all this time, and you've cultivated this, and you're ready to go. That you need it to tear you down. You need it to start you over and say, all right, you gave your best effort. You truly gave all your energy. And in these things, giving all your energy means you're not going to walk right for a couple of days.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and so, man, we finished up the race, and I'll never forget, the guy walked up to me. He passed me probably about mile 16, just trotted right past me, kind of a Cam Hanes-looking fella. I'm not saying it was him, but maybe. Man, I walked up. He came up to me at the table, the aid table. He said, man, I think you got top 10. You got 7th or 8th. And I said, you think so? He goes, well, I got 6, and I haven't seen too many other people come in. I said, well, man, that's outstanding. I was in no mood to be excited at the moment. I was just kind of, it was just kind of, that post-race kind of blur, just kind of like, give me a minute,
Yeah, absolutely.
He said, well, if there's a Clydesdale division, you're going to win that one. He goes, man, you're pretty big to be running so well. So it makes me happy that people say that, because one, it's just a compliment, but the other side is that, man, I don't go out there for just leisure, right? I go out there for competition, same as you, right? It's like, let's go out here and do the best we absolutely can, because again, you work so hard to get to these things and do that. Anyway, we finished that race, man, and it was just, it was great, man. The support from my wife on all of this has been outstanding. I think that Mel has done more for me in this. In the meal prepping, in the, hey, what do you want to eat? Where do we want to go? Accommodating me by carrying a scale for me to eat the right amount of food in a purse whenever I'm going through a maintenance or a cut cycle. I can't say enough that it's imperative to have that relationship and that partnership, because you have to have the backing. Same with you and Lane, right? You have to have somebody that supports you in that, because you can't do it by yourself unless you're by yourself, right? Unless put up against the wall, because she has to be understanding too.
Absolutely.
And anybody getting into this, right? You have to make sure that everybody's on board with it, because it's tough to do alone. But man, that's my racing journey so far. I had a 10K that started it all after 75 hard that me and my buddy Kyle did 75 hard together. We ran across the bridge in Galveston.
I remember that.
Yeah,
race, yeah.
And I don't remember what I placed. I think I was top 3 in age division, but it was the first run ever, and it was the furthest I'd ever run, 6 miles at the time, and it was like, man, I can't believe that, and there was a time I ran 10 miles once and I couldn't walk for 3 days. Like, I mean, you know, and now it's like 10 miles maybe a Saturday morning before I go work out or do a lift. But now I've signed up for a race in April that I'm going to sucker you into, the Brazos Bend 50 miler.
Absolutely. I ran the Brazos Bend 50 last year. I actually did the 100K, so 61 miles out there. Very enjoyable race. I actually took third overall in that one. That was a good time.
I think I got a text from you on that one too.
That's right.
Yeah.
Very flat, fast race.
Yeah.
You're capable to go out and really set a PR. But I'm very excited because I've been waiting for you to kind of find something in that next range a little bit higher. Not that you had to, but I know how you are with pushing yourself and the desire to just do more and see what you're capable of.
For sure.
Seeing that you signed up for a 50 miler now is very exciting. I'm really thinking that somewhere in my training cycle, it might be a little early, but I'm probably going to do it because we've been talking about running a race together for I don't know how long now.
Yeah.
And I think that's going to be the one to do it on, especially being the course that it is.
It's going to be a battle, no doubt.
It is. It is. And I'm excited about it. We've also got a handful of people that are going to do 75 hard with us starting the 16th. If you're interested in that, shoot us a DM on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, whatever. That's at Next in Line Development. There's a little plug. But what we're going to do is the 75 hard will actually end on April 1st. So a group of us that are doing it, that make it to the end, are going to run a race of their choosing, anywhere from 5, 10, 25, 50K,
awesome,
on up to 50 miles, whatever you want to do.
Yeah.
So it's going to be cool to be a part of that, and obviously to have you there running too with it. That's going to be really, really fun. And man,
I think we'll have to make some kind of wager on that one. Whoever gets a better place, we're going to have to find something from the backside of that.
Yeah. I know it's coming because
for sure.
Even like today, we went out there and did that little 5K run, and we found ourselves, we were going to take it easy, probably run like 8.5 minute pace or something like
maybe
that.
Maybe a 9 I was planning, but yeah.
I think we ended up running 7:40 because we ended up pushing each other the whole time.
Like nobody would say, hey, that's enough. Just let's keep going. So
get to a hill and just power up it.
But, I think that says a lot to this overall. Look at where our relationship started, and any relationship you have with other people that are enjoying running now. I mean, look at what it's become, right? The days of us, hanging out and, hey, let's meet up and go drink some beer. Now it's like, hey, let's go hang out and push each other. Let's go make each other better, and it's, if you like hanging out and drinking beer, that's fine. But, this is now what I enjoy, and there's a lot of people that may say, hey, that's not good for you or something like that. There's a lot of things that aren't good for you, but I'm never going to say, you can ask any of my neighbors, that see me or know me, like, I'm never going to say no to a workout. Even if I'm hurting or I'm just like, man, I really didn't want to, like, you can probably twist my arm into getting you to work out with me pretty quick. And I'm sure same goes for here. As soon as you find one of these neighbors around here, that's gullible enough to fall for that.
That's right. Yeah. I got a couple of people I've talked to here and there, especially on the run side. But
right.
Yeah, I haven't found anybody quite as crazy as we are yet here. I'm sure they're there. I just haven't ran across them.
For sure.
But yeah, it's really cool to have that mindset shift, and it's kind of like you talked about earlier. Just once you get one aspect going, because we were always, I think both of us had kind of a knack for leadership, and career-wise, we were very driven, right. Pretty successful in the career.
Yeah,
you had obviously elevated yourself pretty quick,
right.
And I had too while I was there, and seeing that in the career side grow, you almost think it's enough, right? I'm doing
right.
a lot here within this realm of things,
right.
but it's cool to see it whenever it starts to bleed into the other areas of your life, because it turns right back around and just starts feeding the career side. And you said that you had a comment made to you the other day about just how much your fitness and your dedication to what you do
right.
in your personal life really just has a positive impact overall in your work ethic, everything you're willing to do, going above and beyond. So
for sure,
it's a really cool situation to be a part of.
It's an addictive culture. I mean, there's a lot of people that see what you're doing, and a lot of people are driven by that. They want a piece of that, and they think, hey, if I do this, that may help me too. I mean, even something as simple as, I mean, look at the amount of people, I mean, in our close circle that have gone on Garmin, or gone from Apple Watch and gotten on Garmin, and for those of y'all that don't know, right, I mean, you can see steps on Garmin, for instance. Well, it becomes a thing where you're chasing each other, even if you don't say you are, but you're still pushing that other person to be better, and I do my best to stay on the top of that leaderboard every week,
Oh, yeah.
And whether y'all know it or not, I'm doing that, right? I'm making sure I'm doing that. But if you guys are trying to catch me, then inadvertently I'm making you be better, right? I'm making you get more steps, and even people listening at home, if you're just now starting, I started for 5 months straight. I walked every single day. I mean, literally I walked every morning, 3 miles every morning. It would take me 45 minutes. I couldn't run a mile in better than probably 14 minutes when I started all this. Now my best mile may be 6 minutes and 20 seconds, I think.
Yeah.
So, it's a thing of, you may start walking slower than you ever imagined. It may take you 45 minutes to do 2 miles, but it'll get there, right? You're not going to take off running on the first day. You have to set that baseline. You have to know where you're at. And again, there's still days I walked all this week. I mean, it's not always I got to run. I just got to move. I got to get out there. But the meal and diet and the eating that I follow is called Renaissance Periodization. It was created by a guy named Nick Shaw. And they have a fitness challenge every year, and it's actually called RP diet, they shorten it up. But they have a challenge every year, and it was the most lost weight, something like that effect. So they actually said that the man and female that both lost the most weight, they had the most steps out of everybody, because they interviewed them. They said, well, the one guy would get like 17 something thousand a day, and the woman would get just a little less than that. So I made it my goal last year, not all of the year, but most of the end of the year, to get 20,000 steps a day. So I would get 140,000 steps at least a week. And if that means, hey, I'm done with my workout and I've got 2,000 to go, well, then I'm going to walk a mile real quick, or I'm going to go run 2 miles real fast and try to get it knocked out. And if it's walking up and down the hallway in the middle of the night, before I go to bed, then so be it. And it seems excessive, but I wanted to achieve that goal. I wanted to be at 140 by the time of the weekend, by Sunday gets here. Actually, interestingly enough, I actually went to the CrossFit Games this past year, as a spectator, of course. They don't take ultra runners. And while there, they had an option to do a spectator workout. You can sign up for these classes that they offer throughout the whole week, because again, it's an entire week pretty much dedicated to fitness. It's you and 25,000 other people, like, enjoying watching people be in the best shape of their life.
Celebrating fitness.
100%. Yeah. And so I actually was able to make it into one of the RP workouts. I got to meet Nick Shaw, the guy that created it, and I told him my success story. He's like, man, can we get a picture together? And, and to me, I did that, and I did the workout with 19 other people that had signed up for it. And I'll just go ahead and say I went ahead and won the workout. But to me, I put myself in that position to be able to do that. Year after year, I did CrossFit for probably 4 years, but still ate whatever I wanted. And year over year, I watched CrossFit Games on TV every year while eating pizza or doing something and thinking to myself, like, man, I could be there. I should go to that. I should do this. I can CrossFit. And it's like, this is the first time ever that I was proud to be there in the shape that I'm in, and think to myself, like, it feels good to be here, like it's, people can see that I put in the work, as well, obviously not CrossFit athletes, but the other people we were running the workout with, I think it was run a mile, row 2,000 meters, run a mile, and it was like, you had the option to wear the vest. Of course I chose the option, right? I'm going to showcase all I can. But it was a moment that I had, inadvertently had worked for, I had been working out and put in the work. And I even think I ran like 6 miles that morning before that. And I was like, this is no problem. This is a piece of cake. But it's things that you do repeatedly, in the steps, and making sure that you get those things and not cutting yourself short, not giving up at the first sign of adversity or the first speed bump in the road. Things are going to happen. Things are going to come up, but it's getting up. It's making sure that you're getting in whatever goal you set for yourself. My goal was to hit 200 miles last month running. I hit it, even with some hindrances, and, it got cold, man, it got cold. And I told my buddy Kyle, I said, man, Mother Nature's going to make me earn every one of these miles this month, and it was, but I got it, it was like 200.4 miles, but it was my goal to get there. And I made sure that I got there, down to the last day. I think I had to run like 11 miles that day. So I split it up into 2 runs. Man, it's exciting to motivate others to do things, even if you don't say anything to them at all. They just, and I have another friend, and she always says, you don't have to speak of your successes because others will tell you about them. And, and that's 100% true. You don't have to talk about it, and it as well as I do. From somebody telling you your clothes look too big, which tells you need to buy new clothes, to somebody saying, hey, you did great in that race. I can't believe you can run so well. And it's, I will say that the reading has really gone far for me. I've gone as far as to ask the CEO of our company for book recommendations and shared ideas with him, or, it gives you a little more to talk about too. it's something that you and I can sit around and discuss, as opposed to just talking about what game we watched yesterday or something like that. I think it gives you a little more content to what you talk about and a little better understanding of what's going on around you, or how you treat others even, or, a simple book that may just talk about nothing, just be anecdotes or something to that effect. One book that I wanted to mention on here that I've been thinking a lot about was a book called Mind Gym. Man, it's a really easy read. It's a bunch of little short, stories about athletes and coaches and things like that. But there was one quote in there that's always stuck with me, and I carried this quote with me through 2 races, and it said, "Over prepare so you don't underperform." And I literally thought to myself the entire time I ran, you over prepared so you will not underperform. And I carried that the entire race. Anytime I would start to get down, or my feet would cramp backwards, it was just like, okay, you prepared for this. Like, don't worry about that. Keep pushing. And I encourage anybody that reads to check that book out. That's an easy one, but it's definitely a book that helped me with just that one little bit of motivation, man. I carried that through a half marathon and a 50K. It just, honestly, to me, it was, you're out here for a reason, and you're out here because you paid the dues to get here. So put it to work.
Absolutely. And that's a good quote. I'm going to take that one with me as well and use that. And you just talked about books. You talked about podcasts earlier, but that sparks a good question, in my opinion. Being somebody that's so dedicated and disciplined in your workouts and your efforts, motivation's a very fleeting thing.
Sure.
It runs away from you. It's not something you have every day, but the discipline is where it really counts and keeps you going. What are some different sources, like that book and some of the podcasts you listen to? What are some of the things you consume to make sure that you keep your mindset of discipline and maybe motivate yourself along the way too?
Well, obviously, man, I listen to some of the Andy Frisella podcast. He has, usually when he's interviewing somebody, it's usually pretty good. Also, Ed Milet. Ed Milet has been really big.
Ed's great.
Yeah, man, he's done a lot of good. There's a lot of good talks on that one. Man, I try to listen to some of the Jocko podcast when I have time. If I got a long road trip, I'll listen to them. But really, man, it's hard to say. I mean, honestly, there's not a lot that I need to push me to that. I listen to those guys if I'm feeling like it. But as well as I do, running and listening to music, that's not where I'm at anymore. Used to it was to drown it out. Now it's I want to hear my breathing. I want to make sure my step is right. For anybody who's getting started, I would say the Ed Milet podcast. He interviews a lot of great people. The one that comes to mind, honestly, is the one with Dabo Swinney. That interview is just incredible.
Phenomenal.
Yeah. That Dabo Swinney, the interview he does with him and his culture and what he's done with that football program is just, it's absolutely fantastic. And I've sent that one to other people and listened to it again. And similar to that one, the one I said earlier, the James Lawrence podcast, man, I make a point to listen to that one every year, just at least once a year. If I'm on the road, I'm on a longer trip, probably today, I'll probably listen to it. It's amazing what you're capable of, and you hear that. And for anybody who hasn't heard it, I challenge you to listen to it. There's even a documentary about it. If you search on Amazon or whatever podcast or platform you use, just look for Iron Cowboy. There's a movie, like a documentary they made about it, and it's pretty much the same story, but you can see it all. Man, it's unbelievable what that guy was able to do, and I think he's still doing things of that nature. Kind of like a Goggins kind of story. Same thing.
For sure.
Push yourself beyond the limits. Of what some people may say are crazy. Well, let them call you that. That's fine. It's everybody's got to find their why. You've got to find your purpose. You've got to make your decision of what's hard. What's hard to you may not be hard to somebody else, but that's okay. You attack that, right? And man, really the reading, I think that and those podcasts are the only things that I use personally. I don't need a lot. I look at old pictures. I have old pictures from, and that's my motivation. That's what keeps me disciplined. That's why I'm weighing food. That's why that's why that sticks in my head. It's just, what are you eating? What are you doing? Why are you making these decisions? Because I'm not going to go back to that.
I saw somebody on social media that I've been talking back and forth with through Next in Line. They asked the question, what are the things that get you to the gym when you don't want to go? And I said exactly that, thinking about how easy it will be to go back to being that person that I used to be, that now,
Absolutely.
Looking back, I can't stand.
Absolutely.
And that's really cool.
Well, the first thing I asked you when I got to your house, where are your fat pictures? It's like everybody's got them. There's life moments you can't change whenever you were a bigger person, and you shouldn't. You're not trying to change that, but you can correct it moving forward, right? You can't change old pictures of engagement photos or something like that. I got them; they're on my wall too, and I look at them and think, "Holy cow!" Literally,
no pun intended.
Yeah. But there's there's things that you can't take back, and you shouldn't want to take it back because you learned from that, right? You learned that's not where you want to be, and that's what all this is. It's all a learning lesson, and and it's everything you do, you can take something away from it. If you can't take something away from it, then you didn't pay attention to what was going on. But right, you look back at those pictures, man. I see them, and I can show them to people today, and there's people that have only known me for this amount of time. They've only known me as being in shape, and they think, I can't imagine you like that. And it's like, well, exactly. And I did everything I could to make sure that you can't.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And you said it best. I mean, you've got to be there. You've got to be in that situation to wear those shoes, to wear the oversized clothes, and to be stressed about the person that you've become, to springboard yourself into action.
Absolutely.
To become this person.
Absolutely.
And, man, there's so many people. If you're just starting out, if you're looking to get into this, just understand that. I mean, I know we talked about it at length earlier, but every person that you see, the swole guy in the gym, the ultra marathon athlete out there doing crazy stuff, they've all been there. And what I mean by there is someplace they weren't happy being. Usually it's overweight. Usually it's eating too much, not having control of their diet, drinking.
Right.
There's so many great success stories, and there's great people you can pull from. You talked about Ed Milet. You talked about Andy Frisella. All these great people. Even mentioning Cam Hanes earlier. Right. There's always a reason and a way to find the discipline within yourself. And no matter what you consume, Chris Barnes is at a level, and I'm kind of at a level too, like you mentioned, with not running with music or podcasts or anything in our ears. We found the discipline within ourselves. But if you're looking for that and you ever need resources, you can always reach out to me. I'll connect you with Chris too, and get you the right avenues for that. And man, I know we're getting a little bit far into this, and we need to probably wrap up here, but I do have a couple more questions for you. I usually ask these of everybody that comes on the podcast, and the first one is, I know we've talked about it back and forth a little bit, but if there was one thing that you wish you knew whenever you started this, or right before you decided to start this, is there a piece of advice you could give somebody that's at the beginning of their journey or thinking about pulling the trigger on becoming the person that they want to be? What would you pass on to them right now?
I would say find the balance and try to find it as early as you can. I maybe dove in headfirst, hardcore right off the bat. I was all in all the time. Can't do this, can't do that. There is a balance, a workaround around that. And now I'm to the point now, but I wasn't comfortable enough to do that. And I'll make mine two-part, in that, and because I talked about it earlier, but in Atomic Habits, right? He talks about it's just creating that habit. Create the habit. Don't burn yourself out. You don't want to go out the door and say, all right, I'm going to run a mile today, and you haven't ran in 6 years, right? You're not going to do anything but deflate yourself and just say, I give up, and which a lot of people do. And I probably did it myself multiple times. You get started hot and heavy, and next thing you know, you don't want to do it anymore because you've hurt something, or you didn't think you were where you would want to be. I have a friend of mine now that we've been texting quite a bit, been a friend of mine for probably over 10 years, and now he's getting into a point, he's close to 40, and he's ready to get a change, right? He's ready to make something happen. And in discussing it with him, he said, I'm going to run a mile. I said, run a mile as best you can. If you have to walk, that's fine, but get you a baseline. If it's 12 minutes, if it's 15 minutes, whatever need be. So I say set that baseline. Whenever you go out, whatever you're going to start doing, if you decide I'm going to be the world's strongest man, that's fine. But set yourself a baseline, right? Know where you start. And that's something I didn't do. I didn't set a baseline for, okay, I'm starting here. I just went in full-headed, like, I've been doing CrossFit. I can do this. Well, I couldn't do this. There was a lot of things I couldn't do. I knew the basics of working out. I understood lifting weights and functional movements, but I wasn't good at them. I went from going to the gym and eating what I wanted to working out in my garage and trying to figure it out, and it's not the right path. I would say if you have people to lean on that are in the fitness world, then lean on them. If you want to lean on yourself, then reach out and lean on him. You don't have to do it alone. There's a lot of people that have done it before you, and not everybody's plan is the same, but there are some people that have some really good advice, and I had some people to lean on, but I didn't always lean on everybody that I should have, and I was stubborn in that sense, but I'd say set your baseline and start your habit. If your habit is putting on your shoes and walking around the block, then make that putting on your shoes the habit, as the book says. Atomic Habits, it's make tying your shoes be the start of that habit and associate your brain with that. So, yeah.
Absolutely. No, and I think that's a really good point. You talked about being stubborn. And one of the other things I see a lot of people, and myself included, whenever I first started out in this space, it's really easy to become intimidated by
Sure.
those people that we see, because you look at somebody that's doing all the things that you're doing, and somebody wants to get there, but they're starting, like you said, at just coming off the couch,
Right.
or just their diet's really bad. They're in a spot where they don't feel like they can come to a person like you because it's so different. Guys, understand that, like we mentioned earlier, everyone's been at this point. They've been
Right.
the beginner, the novice, and all you've got to do is ask the questions, because 9 times out of 10, the people that are at a high level now understand where you've been. They've been there themselves, and they're willing to help more than anybody else is. And honestly, just they're extremely happy to help
Sure.
as well. And man, the second question I will throw at you, we've talked about it a little bit, but I want to get a little bit more in depth. I always ask, this is the Next in Line podcast, what is next in line for Chris Barnes?
Man, I've got the race, in April, so I'll be working towards that to make sure I win it. Second place is available.
Oh, okay.
For anybody looking.
Glad to know. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
I'll
Yeah.
put that on the website as well.
Yeah, please do. Man, that's the first thing I have in mind. I would like to try to knock out 100 miles this year. I know you got a big one this year, so I can't let you have all the fun. I've kind of looking at business opportunities just in the way of, in a fitness space, in a recovery areas. Just what's out there. Yeah, I think helping people and like what you're doing with this, it's a thing of how do you reach those people? What are our options to reach out and help everybody try to be the best version of themselves, or go find what's next in line for them. I kind of get excited about that. I get excited when I get phone calls from people that work with me and say, "Hey, what do I do here? What do I do there?" And like you said, it's there are so many people that are willing to help you and excited to help you, and it is intimidating, but you should never be intimidated by them, because chances are they are more than happy to hear that you want to do that. And I again go back to how many people have bought Garmin because they see you running and they want to be a part of that. They want to get involved with that, or you can sell it. And that's not a plug for Garmin. I just, that's just what we wear.
We're not sponsored or anything.
Yeah.
So we're open to it. But.
Yeah. But it's, you see that, and it motivates you so much. It motivates myself, when people are like, "Hey, I want to work out with you." I'm like, "Man, absolutely. Come get some," and I'm going to make it hard, but I'm going to make it in your wheelhouse. I'm going to give you something. I'm going to give you a workout that you paid for, which you're not having to pay. But, I never I don't think I've ever turned anybody away from coming to get some, and it's one of those things that motivates me. So finding my voice and what I can do to help people get better. Now that I'm going on 3 years of this, with being in shape and maintaining it and keeping it off. So no going back. So
Yeah.
Let's keep moving forward.
Absolutely. Man, that's exciting. I'm excited to hear that you want to keep pushing the envelope,
You bet.
especially in the ultra running world. I know every single race I've done has taught me just more and more and exposed me to more of understanding what I'm capable of,
For sure.
I guess. So, man, that is cool. Well, that as you get ready for those races and everything else, if there's ever anything I can do to help out, we've got a good group that we run as a crew that would probably love to work with you. We got a lot of mutual friends in that group.
Yeah.
Love to pace you, do whatever we can to support you. And, man, thank you for taking the time to drive all the way to Divine, Texas from Houston. Got to hit an awesome workout, have some great conversations.
Had lunch.
Good lunch, good lunch.
It's a small town with a big heart, I'll say.
That's right, yeah. That's right. Well, man, thank you so much for stopping in and just having this conversation with me and sharing some of your great knowledge and experience in the time.
For sure.
And, man, if there's ever anything I can do, don't hesitate to reach out. But thank you, brother.
Same to you. Thanks, man.
Well, there you have it, guys. That was an awesome interview episode with the one and only Mr. Chris Barnes. I know I received a ton of value from that episode, and I'm hoping that you were able to as well. And if you did receive that value, guys, make sure you share the show with somebody who could also receive the same kind of value. That's the best way for us to grow. So take a screenshot, put it on your social media, let people know who's helping you through your personal development journey. Now, guys, in the same sense, if you're interested in 75 Hard, use any of our social media platforms, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, to shoot us a DM. Let us know that you want to be part of what we have going on the 16th. I think we're even going to do an event at the end of 75 Hard on April 1st. Probably the race that Chris and I talked about, the Brazos Bend 50. There's links all the way from 5K up to 50 miles. So there's a little bit of everything for everyone, no matter what level you're at. Don't be intimidated, guys. Jump in head first. Get ready to start your new year off on a good note, and let us know what we can do to help you out. Guys, always be prepared for whatever is next in line.